Hello and welcome back to the Odds Now YouTube channel for your Sunday preview of all the action at Alexandra Palace. It's the penultimate day before Christmas, which means the first round is now completely done and dusted, and we have just 16 second round ties to wrap up before the Christmas break. So it was a fantastic day of action yesterday. Looked very bleak at one point from a tipping perspective, but we managed to break even after the last two-point win bets both landed. I was particularly happy with Nick Kenny to beat Raymond van Barneveld. That was quite a strong fancy, and he did the job, didn't he? Barney didn't really turn up. Kenny was fired up from those comments, as I thought he might be, and managed to retain his tour card, an emotional win for him. We also hit the over 4.5, 180s for each player in the Heta versus Scut match, was as high quality as I expected it to be. Pleased for Damon, disappointed for Connor, two players we like a lot on our channels. But yeah, really enjoyed that game as well. Shame it clashed with the boxing, really, because it deserves to be front and centre of everyone's Saturday night attention, that contest, and Heta wiring the 9 dart to win it as well, of course. So yeah, those two winners took us to break even for the day after no luck in the afternoon session. A couple of close run things, but also a couple of just tips that were just wide of the mark, as is the nature of the beast. But that's why we have a point system in place to maximise the ones we strongly fancy, and it came up trumps yesterday, got us out of a little bit of a sticky spot. So we go again today with 8 games. I've got 2 games that I'm giving a no bet to, but they're both on the evening. I've got fancies in the other games. Our first game of the afternoon then is Ryan Searle versus Matt Campbell, and I'm going to back Ryan Searle to win this, but over 3.5 sets in the match, which comes in at 23-20 with Bet365. That's a 2-point win for me. I do ultimately think Searle will have too much class for Matt Campbell, but Campbell has proven himself as a really solid player on the Alexandra Palace stage. He got a couple of great wins here last year, especially the second round victory over James Wade. And he followed it up with a good win over Mensur Suljovic. He was good on the treble 20. His finishing was pretty solid, a little bit patchy at times in the game. But yeah, Campbell has not had a good year by his own admission. I think he was very blunt in his press conference, saying it's been a really bad year up until this point, but this kind of salvages it. And it's true at that end of the order of merit where he is. He's effectively doubled his money for the year. And this is a little bit of a free hit now against Ryan Searle. Now, I do ultimately think that Ryan Searle will come out on top. I think he's just too good in all areas of his game for Matt Campbell over an extended distance. But like I've said with a few of these seeds, needing a little bit of time to warm up, could well be the case with Searle here. Campbell is solid enough to take advantage of any kind of sluggish start, but I do think as the game plays out, Searle will have too much for him. So I feel like the likeliest scorelines are 3-1 or 3-2 Searle. You get them both on side here and still getting a little bit of odds against at 23-20. Next up is Dirk van Duijvenbode. He makes his tournament bow against Madraz. It's the same bet for me at a similar price. Dirk to win with over 3.5 sets. That is 21-20 again with Bet365 via their Bet Builder tool. I just think Madaz Razma is one of these awkward, tricky customers, and he can be quite hard to put away, as we've seen over the years on the World Championship stage. When he does go out, it tends to be a tight and close-run contest that he just comes out on the wrong side of. And I think he is a little bit of an awkward player to play with. His pace, his treble 19 hitting, and he proved to have too much for Christian Kist, who was fantastic in that match. Hit a 9 darter, of course, in the first set. You don't know what that actually took out of him in terms of the adrenaline rush and going off stage. Maybe realising he'd won 60 grand off the sponsors helped lift the burden of not winning the first round game here. But yeah, Rasma held himself together really well, doesn't he? And again, it's just a case of a player being, this is an angle I quite like to take in the second round. The player that's played in the first round being a little bit sharper on the stage and maybe a little bit of a slow start from the seed sometimes. And I think players like Searle and Dirk, they can be prone to sluggish starts anyway. So I think over 3.5 sets put the Dirk win at just above evens again, for similar reasons to what I said for Searle. Looks like a way to play this game. I'm interested to see how Dirk goes, because we've definitely seen some improved form from him in recent weeks. I know our colleague and the host of our big preview, Adam Smith, has flagged Dirk as possibly the most overpriced player in the field, and I can see his thinking there. But we need Dirk to put it all together, don't we? Because he has had a very, very patchy year. Hopefully, we see the best of him here at Ali Pali. Next up is Joe Cullen versus Wessel Nyman, and anyone that's kind of watched our anti-post stuff will know I have a good position on Nyman, but at much bigger prices than what he went off, and I couldn't really, as I stressed on the tournament preview, I couldn't be promoting backing him at sort of 33-1 to win this tournament. He's even shorter now, having come through a stern old test from Cameron Carillison, who put in a career best performance average about 97. But Nyman managed to break him in a deciding leg to get over the line. Needed all of his class there, Nyman, because there was a lot of nerves floating around on that stage at times. Searching for his first win at Ali Pali, and he dug it out. He had to really play some good stuff there to get over the line. But I did think there was clear nerves apparent, as I say. And I found it interesting in his post-match press conference that he said he doesn't consider himself favourite against Joe Cullen. And I think he was sincere when he said that. He said, Joe Cullen's experience on this World Championship stage is second to none. And I tend to agree with him here. I think the market has overreacted. So regardless of my own personal position, I can't help but think that 14-5 about a Joe Cullen win is just a little too big given all the circumstances. That implies that he has a 25% chance of winning this match, which to me, when you consider Nyman's lack of experience on stage and clear nerves in his first round game, compared with Cullen, who is an absolute veteran of this stage, may feel like he has nothing to lose after a bit of a disastrous year, but may also feel like he's been written off unfairly against somebody who really lacks the experience in these realms. And the last time we saw Cullen on the Alexandra Palace stage, for all of his woes this year, you can't dismiss it. He played 36 legs with Luke Humphries and lost in a deciding leg. He averaged 99 over 36 legs. So we know that this stage brings the best out of Joe Cullen. Now, whether he could do it again this year is a different story, because he has had a rotten year. Form-wise, he's not in great nick. But he won a couple of games at the Grand Prix, come in a massive outsider against Chris Dobey in round one, and won that one 2-1 in sets, playing majestically, in particular in the last set. He then went on to beat Daryl Gurney, where again he was priced as an underdog. So I don't think Cullen minds being priced as an underdog. He's very aware of what his form's been like. But I can assure you he'll have been on the practice board non-stop over the last couple of weeks, trying to put things right, trying to ensure he comes here and shuts a few people up. And I'm sure he would love to come into that post-match press conference having knocked out Nyman, the hype train that many people have kind of latched onto. And yeah, I just think the dynamics are here. I think Cullen should be a little bit shorter than what he is in the market. So I'm not necessarily saying he's going to win. I'm saying that if you haven't had a bet in this game already, 14-5 looks a little bit big for a man of Cullen's experience. And with that in mind, I'll also chuck a point on him to hit the most 180, to hit over 4.5 180s, sorry, not the most 180s, because Nyman, he could be a tearaway on that treble 20 bed, to be fair. But I think if this game does go a bit longer than the market anticipates, and Cullen does raise his level above what we've seen recently, as I think he will, then over 4.5 180 is perfectly viable at 11-8. He hit 12 last year in that game with Humphries. So, knows where the red bit is when things are going well. I just think he's been a little bit dismissed too easily. So interested to see how that game goes. Obviously, from a personal perspective, hoping Nyman prevails, but don't think it'll be easy by any stretch. Final game of the afternoon is Ritchie Edhouse up against Ian White. And I'm going to back the correct score here. I'm going to go for 3-0 Ritchie Edhouse. Now, everybody will know that my 3-0 correct scores haven't been going that well. I think all but one of them have finished 3-1. Callan Rydz broke the streak and got us a good 9-4 winner on these. But yeah, generally been a source of frustration, these, for me throughout the tournament thus far. However, look at the price here, 10-3 about a Ritchie Edhouse 3-0 win. I think I've done okay on the market in the last few months by just generally getting with Ritchie Edhouse more than the market fancies him, because I still think he's an underrated player. Now, he does have that aspect of he's struggled at Ali Pali a little bit previously. He's got to get over that hurdle, but he's been jumping hurdles left, right and centre recently, hasn't he? It's been a fantastic year for him. European champion. He backed up his performances at the Grand Slam of Darts, I thought, really, really well. And he's just a really solid customer, isn't he? And Ian White, he's so patchy. Yes, he had a good win against Michael van Gerwen at the Players' Championship finals. But then to go out in the next round averaging something like 78 kind of sums up where Ian White's at this stage of his career. You just can't hang your hat on him. And I think if he does have one of those days where he's not quite at it, Edhouse is just ruthless these days. I think he can take advantage of it quite easily. So I think the 3-0, it's really appealing for a point at 10-3. It's too big for my money. I couldn't put anyone off the -1.5 sets, but for context, that's 5 to 6. So I'm going to take a chance here with a point at 10 to 3 rather than 2 points at 5 to 6. And, maybe I'll suffer the same fate I have with a lot of these 3-0s. But I think at the prices I could pay to find out there. Also worth noting that Ian White's first round game against Sandro Sosin got postponed at very, very short notice because Sosin was suffering chest pains backstage. Now, that's a good thing for White in terms of getting his money without having to go on stage. But I think he could have probably done with those sets on stage to sharpen him up for this game against Edhouse. So the fact that both players are going in kind of cold to this one just makes things more in my favour towards the towards the favourite and towards the man who's been on a far better form over the last 3 months. Evening session then kicks off with what could be a belter as Germany's main hope, Martin Schindler, enters the fray. He takes on Callan Rydz, who was one of the stars of the first round, averaging 107 in his whitewash win over Romeo Gerbevach. And I'm going to back both players to carry on where they left off, really, because Schindler's had a very good year. Yes, recent results haven't been as good, it could be said, but this year, fantastic breakthrough year for him in terms of title winning, 2 Euro Tour crowns. And he really does seem to have found a new stage presence. He's described himself as one of the men to beat now. And I think that inner confidence that comes with winning a stage title is certainly apparent in Schindler. He's been on the wrong side of fine margins in a couple of his recent games on TV. So I'm not too worried about his form, even if you were to read the results and maybe have a little bit of concern. I actually have backed him to win this quarter at 16 to 1. However, I was pleasantly surprised to see the nick that Callan Rydz is in. He was fantastic against Gerbevach, wasn't he? And just enjoying himself on the stage, which is something he's not been able to do much at all over the last couple of years. It's been a torrid time for him, generally speaking, but he seems happy. He said in his post-match media briefing that he knows he's a bit of a nutcase. Quite a harsh description of himself, I thought, but he's clearly had battles going on in his head in the last few months. If he's got on top of those, he's got all the raw ingredients to go very deep here. Former quarter-finalist, of course, 3 years ago, losing that deciding leg to Peter Wright, who went on to be world champion. So Rydz really has sort of competed at the very top end of this tournament. And I'm sure he goes into this game knowing he's an underdog, has no fear. If he repeats that first round performance, he probably beats Martin Schindler. It's a big if, but I do think 2 quick players, 2 rhythmical players, and 2 of the best 180 hitters when they're on their A game. So we could take a good solid chance here on both players to hit over 3 180s. I think as long as Rydz gets a set, as long as we get 4 sets worth of action, I see this bet landing. So that's a 2-point win bet at even money. The next game in the evening session is Ross Smith taking on Paulo Nebida, and this is a no-bet game for me. I just want to see a little bit more of Ross Smith before I get involved because I think he's had a very patchy year. I was encouraged by his performance at the Grand Slam of Darts, where he had a few good results in the group stage, beat Connor Scott 5-0 in a particularly impressive performance, but then lost 10-5 to Martin Lukeman in the knockouts, and he just couldn't seem to get going, Smith. That'll have frustrated him because I remember saying after the Grand Slam group stage on this channel that the draw looked to have opened up for him a little bit. He lost to Lukeman, who then went on to make the final. So clearly that draw and that opportunity was there for him. I'm sure that will have frustrated him a little bit. Really encouraging run again at the Players' Championship finals, where I think he got to the last 16 the quarterfinals for losing to Luke Littler, a game that he probably should have won, threw away a little bit. But if we see the best of Ross Smith, he obviously has too much quality for Paulo Nebida, who did really well to get his first game on that Alexandra Palace stage. He's been on the wrong end of fine margins previously with 2-3-2 losses. Beat Jim Williams 3-2. Yes, Jim Williams had to spurn a few match starts, but I thought Nebida probably deserved that look because he played so well and he's such a solid customer. But I think this is just too much of a step up in class for him. I'm not going to force an angle here. Ross Smith is 1-10. I think Nebrida's a tricky customer, but I think he probably gets dealt with. We'll just give it a watch in brief. The penultimate game of the evening sees Gary Anderson make his bow into the tournament, the third favourite for glory here this year after a brilliant year on the floor. And I'm going to back him to beat Jeffrey De Graaf 3-0, 30-10. That is a 2-point win bet. I think that Jeffrey, he had a tough old time against Rashad Sweetin, but he should be commended for the way he dealt with it because Sweetin had the crowd absolutely waxing lyrical behind him, didn't he? And went to set up. That's a real test of mettle. Yes, Sweeting missed darts to go 2-0 up, and what would have happened then, we'll never know. But De Graaf hit a really ballsy three-figure checkout to level it at 1-1 and then never let his opponent back into the game, didn't he? And that was classy from De Graaf, but I feel like he's probably scaled his mountain now. Yes, he's been around the circuit. Yes, he's had a Pro Tour final earlier this year, but I'm sorry, I just can't get there with him against Gary Anderson. I think Gary is in too good a space. We've seen nerves from Gary previously in the first round, and he does always talk about just wanting to get through. But I just think there's a real gap in these two's form. And I think at odds against about the 3-0 win, I'd have had this closer to odds on, really. So at 13-10, I've got to be taking it with a 2-point win. I think it's a little bit too big. Really excited to see how Gary goes this year. Final game of the night is Dimitri van den Bergh up against Ireland's Dylan Slevin. And fair play to Slevin. I thought that it was going to be Willie O'Connor in this game for Dimitri, and I thought it was going to be a really tough test. I don't have as much confidence in Slevin to back up his performance level. That said, he did really well to deal with it, obviously playing a compatriot in O'Connor and a friend. So that was a game that neither of them appeared to enjoy, but Slevin got the better of him. Worth noting that Slevin's points were doing quite a lot of damage to the board, and I believe he's been told that he has to change his equipment for round 2, which is probably a little bit of a frustration for Willie O'Connor if his opponent was playing with illegal equipment, but there we go. But yeah, there's just too many question marks over this game for me. So I have to give it a no bet, because Dimitri as well, he's an enigma in his own right, isn't he? He's had some really flat performances on the TV this year. But then you look at his actual record in the majors, it's really, really rock solid. So I can't take too many chunks out of what he's actually done on TV this year. But equally, I can't have too much faith in him in a game of this nature. He went out in the first round last year. He's had a couple of early exits, hasn't he, recently, actually, Dimitri? But generally, his World Championship record is exemplary. You'd expect him to get through this. But given what we saw from Slevin, which was pleasantly surprising, and given what we haven't yet seen from Dimitri, it's another watching brief for me. Okay, then, so that sums up my bets for Sunday at Alexandra Palace. Let me just pull them up onto the screen for you now with the staking plan. So I've got 4 2-point win bets today. The first 2 games are both 3-point win bets, and it's Ryan Searle to win with over 3.5 sets in the match at 23-20, and the same for Dirk van Duijvenbode over 3.5 sets and win at 21-20. They're both 2-point wins against Matt Campbell and Madraz Razma, respectively, who I think will give both a stern examination, but ultimately come up short to their seeded opponent. Joe Cullen, well, this is purely a price-based bet. I'm not saying that he's going to beat Wessel Nyman, but I think if you like betting value, you have to say that Cullen has more than a 25% chance of winning this match, given the vast experience difference between the pair on that famous stage. Cullen, a point at 14-5, and I desperately hope that loses, because I've got a nice position on Nyman outright, as I say. I'm also going to back Cullen on the over 4.5 180s line, just because I think the game will go a little bit deeper than the market thinks, and Cullen generally can raise his game on this stage. So we'll see how that one goes at 11-8. Final game of the afternoon, I'm backing Ritchie Edhouse to dispose of Ian White 3-0. I just think the price is too big at 10-3. I'd have had it a little bit closer to sort of 5-2, 9-4 region. So that's the reasoning for that one. And then on the evening, just the 2 bets, both 2-point wins. Martin Shindler and Callan Rydz to both hit over 3.5 maximums at evens. I thought Rydz was very impressive in his first round game. Hopefully he can repeat that against the very dangerous Schindler. And then Gary Anderson to beat Jeffrey De Graaf 3-0 again. Thought this would be closer to odds on. So it's a 2-point win bet at 13-10. Okay, so we've got, let's have a tally, 11 points staked in total today. Let's hope that we end the day in profit. Let me know what you're backing today or Sunday in the PDC World Championship. I'll be back to preview the final day's action before Christmas, Monday. That video will probably go live early tomorrow morning. And thanks for the feedback on a few of the recent videos. Do appreciate it. And somebody asked if I could get the previews out the night before. That will very much be the plan for after Christmas. Scheduling just killing me a little bit at the moment. It's been a busy old week on and off the hockey, but I will do my best to get these videos out nice and early so that you can take them in before the action starts. Well, good luck if you're having a bet today, and as I say, I'll be back tomorrow. See you then.